So if you would want people to remember one thing or one key idea from your book, what would that be?
That if they want to understand Ladino in the 21st century, they only need to read one book, Ladino on the Internet, Sepharad 4.
Welcome back once again. So this time I want to ask you about Web 2.0. What is it?
The Web 2.0 is the most important development currently in the online revitalization of Ladino. It started around the mid-2000s, 2004, you could say, with the creation of Facebook. And YouTube was also around that time created. And we're still in Web 2.0. For all the talk about Web 3.0 and AI, etc., we're still very much deep into Web 2.0 in that the lion's share of the market belongs to the gamma, the big five in technology, right? Google, Microsoft, Apple, Meta. There are a number of platforms discussed in the book concerning Web 2.0, and most of them belong to Web 2.0. Chapter 2, first of all, is about digital archives, right? The digital archives were the first relevant Web 2.0 platform on the internet. And it started with the Autoridad Nacional del Ladino from Israel. When they started uploading videos in Ladino, all of them shot in Israel.
Right. Okay.
And so their YouTube channel was created on 2011. And that set the standard for subsequent ones, from Sepharad, Ladino 21, a few videos from Wikitongue or Verard, etc. Yes, and so that's chapter 2. Then chapter 3 is about social media, as in Facebook, Twitter, now X, Instagram, Snapchat, etc. Obviously, because of its over-reliance on the written speech and the demographic of Ladino speakers, most of whom are 60-plus-year-old, Facebook is the most popular platform when it comes to social media for Ladino speaking purposes, and in particular the group Los Ladinadores by Aldo Sevi, who has done a tremendous job. Congratulations to him, which again is not to say Los Ladinadores is flawless. And then there are language learning apps. Think of Duolingo, but similar. Duolingo doesn't feature a course on Ladino, but similar platforms do. We can talk about that, amongst others, UTalk. And then chapter 4 is about the Zoom boom. This was probably the most important development when it comes to the Ladino-speaking community. Platforms such as the Sephardic Digital Academy, Encontros de Alfad, and the Oxford School of Rare Jewish Languages were instrumental in this revitalization of Ladino by digital means during the Zoom boom. And then we have Netflix series, amongst which Kulub and the Beauty Queen of Jerusalem. Those are the main Web 2.0 platforms. Do you have any questions on any of them that you would like to discuss?
Yeah, so language learning apps. So it doesn't appear on Duolingo, unfortunately, in my opinion, because I'm a sucker for marketing. What can I say? But I know that you came up with the course for UTalk, right?
Correct. So I contacted Duolingo and I said it would be great if you would like me to develop in the incubator, which they have for courses, a course on Ladino. And they told me, yeah, sure, we will let you know. 3 months passed, they didn't contact me, so I said, cool. And I contacted UTalk, which specializes on endangered languages. The function is very similar to Duolingo, so it's based on gamification, acquiring points, practicing with images and words, not so much grammar. But it focuses on endangered languages, so it has very niche languages like Shanghainese, Wenzhounese, Manx, etc. And so I thought Ladino will be a very nice addition and it will resonate with the spirit of the platform. So they were not counting on it, but they were open to the idea. So I developed, they have a master corpus for all the courses. It's the same corpus, which means once you want to practice a language, you can practice it from any other language in the platform. So now people can practice Ladino from over 150 languages without needing to know any English. They can learn Ladino from Zulu, from French, from all the main languages of the Sephardic diaspora, which is very important.
That's
Right?
fantastic.
Hebrew, yeah. And now that Yiddish is going to be added, because it's the same corpus, people can learn Ladino from Yiddish and Yiddish from Ladino.
That's really interesting. I didn't know you could do that.
Yes. So it turned out to be for the best, the fact that it wasn't developed in Duolingo first, because if it had been the case, I wouldn't have contacted UTalk. And now people wouldn't be able to learn Ladino from over 150 languages, including all the main languages of the Sephardic diaspora: Greek, Turkish, Hebrew, French, etc.
So do you know which languages are most, and how to phrase it, used to learn Ladino? I'm assuming it's not from English, so do you have any data on that?
I don't have the data, but my guess is that Hebrew, Turkish, and French, those three. Historically, obviously, Greek was very important, but because 95% of Jews from Salonika were assassinated during the Holocaust, then that demographic is no longer there. So one thing is the historical importance of the language. Another thing is how many people in 2024 are using that language to learn Ladino, right? So.
And so another little point on UTalk. I've dabbled on the Ladino UTalk course, and I'm interested to know how, I guess, contemporary language in Ladino came about, considering the speaker demographics of, I guess, Ladino heritage speakers.
Let me give credit where credit is due. So, as I said, there's a master corpus, which means there's not a lot of room to innovate. So, and the master corpus sometimes contains terms that are not relevant for a particular language, speech community's way of life. For instance, golf or snow sports are not particularly trendy in the Sephardic community, right? So, but we still had to find a way to translate those, to translate birdie or things like that, the specific terms. But any other term from the master corpus is already decided beforehand. So the only thing that UTalk adds in addition to that is the possibility of 100 words that are specific to the language's culture. So, and those 100 words, Alejandro Acero Ayuda, my partner in Ladino 21, and myself decided those words. Obviously, we went to Sephardic food, for instance, right? Borecas, things like that, music, right? Cantadera, specific people, Sara Oeste, Eliezer Papo, Autoridad Nacional del Ladino, Moshe Shaul, those kind of things. So, with the most relevant cultural items concerning Ladino in the 21st century, mostly, yeah. And that kind of counterbalanced the fact that the master corpus wasn't tailor-made for Ladino. And then our translation of the master corpus was reviewed by Benny Aguado and Rachel Bornik, who were flown to London to the studio to record with their own voices every single word. So when you hear the word on UTalk, it's either Benny Aguado if it's a male voice, or Rachel Bornik is a female voice.
Yeah, I noticed that, and I was like, oh, so sweet.
Yes. Yeah, it's great.
What is the Zoom Boom? I mean, I know what it is, but in case people don't know what it is,
yes,
what is it?
The Zoom Boom was making a virtue out of a necessity. When the pandemic hit, most people stayed at home, and the pandemic was particularly damaging for the elderly, which means that 90% of the global community of Ladino speakers were restricted in their mobility, stuck at home, so that they went to the internet to stay in touch and connect with each other. And out of that necessity, virtue was created, meaning more activity in the platforms that already existed. For instance, Ladino Comunidad experienced spikes in activity, Ladino 21, etc., and new platforms to accommodate the increased demand, meaning Sephardic Digital Academy, Encontros del Had, and the Oxford School of Rare Jewish Languages. So let me break those down briefly. The Sephardic Digital Academy featured Ladino classes like Karen Sarjon, for instance, or Rachel Bornik herself taught there. Cuisine classes, a yeshiva, which started with Eliezer Papo, all sorts of cultural items related to the Sephardic diaspora, and a great deal of Ladino. Not all of them were in Ladino, but a lot of them were. So in that chapter, you will find a new interview with Ethan Marcus, who was in charge of these developments. And then we have Encontros del Had. Encontros del Had has been widely successful. They just celebrated the 200th edition a week ago. And Encontros del Had started with Liliana Benveniste's idea of meeting once per week on Al Had, meaning Sunday, and just speak exclusively in Ladino. So it's the equivalent of Ladino Comunità in that sense of functional differentiation, creating a space where only that language is used, but is spoken rather than written, which is a very nice way of complementing Ladino Comunità, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then finally, we have the Oxford School of Jewish Languages, which started with Ladino courses and now it has incorporated Hacketia courses. The Oxford School of Jewish Languages focuses on Hebrew scripts, which complements both Ladino Comunità and Encontros del Had, because it's the written component like Ladino Comunità, but it's the Hebrew scripts unlike Ladino Comunità. And it's not focused on the acquisition of fluency, but focused on the acquisition of mastery of Hebrew scripts for research purposes, meaning Rashi and Solitreo, right? The semi-cursive and the cursive scripts.
And what difficulties arise from it being on Zoom and online when it comes to teaching and learning the Hebraic scripts?
To be honest, it was way more advantages than disadvantages, because prior to the Zoom boom, most classes, even online classes, only featured 1 to 10 students. With the Zoom boom, particularly with the Oxford School of Jewish Languages, it was the first time we could have more than 100 students in the same class. So this was a blessing, as I said, a virtue out of a necessity. Difficulties when it comes to specifically teaching Hebrew scripts will be, I think, people's perceived difficulty when it comes to installing fonts. As we said before, it's not easy to type in Rashi or in Solitreo. And so I published a free, simplified guide to reading and writing Judesmo in Rashi and Solitreo, which people can Google. And there you have the specific instructions step by step on how to install the Mekorot Rashi and the Solitreo fonts. But even then, some people write to me, I still cannot manage to install that font. So I think that installing the fonts is the main thing. You have to have your Hebrew script keyboard already activated in addition to the font selected. That's what tricks a lot of people. They think it's just about installing the font. No, you have to have the language, not as English, but as Hebrew, and then the font selected. Yeah. And then I think an additional difficulty is, for instance, when you try to write on PowerPoint. When you try to write on Rashi and PowerPoint, it can be tricky. Against when you change the line, some letters change. And so what I did to tackle that problem was to take screenshots of the Rashi text once I have finished it, and then use it as an image as opposed to text. Because sometimes you upload then that presentation, and if you upload it on Google Drive, for instance, it doesn't support Mekorot Rashi, so the whole thing disappears.
Oh my God.
People, yeah, it's definitely tricky. And when I was preparing classes at Oxford, the thing that took me the most time was absolutely writing in Hebrew scripts, particularly Rashi. That took forever. Yeah.
What a nightmare. Oh my God. Well, I don't envy you. So how...
It was all worth it. It was all worth it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I still don't envy the process.
Yes, of course, of course.
So
as the song goes, everybody wants to shine, don't know what the shine takes.
Absolutely. Can you compare how the Zoom boom affected Ladino in comparison to Yiddish?
Yes. The Zoom boom was less significant for Yiddish than it was for Ladino. So it's one of those rare points in the book where actually Ladino leads the way and Yiddish follows. And this is because of two things. First, there were already online initiatives that were widely successful concerning Yiddish prior to the Zoom boom. Second, the demographic of Yiddish speakers is significantly younger, so that those speakers were not as affected by the pandemic as in the case of the demographic of the Ladino speaking community.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you have a significant part of Orthodox Yiddish speakers who do not necessarily engage as much with the internet, which also downplays its importance.
You mentioned earlier about Netflix and Ladino. Can you tell us about Netflix and
Yes.
Ladino?
Yes. So there's Ladino on Netflix mainly through two series, which are Kulüp and The Beauty Queen of Jerusalem. And Kulüp is a Turkish one. The Beauty Queen of Jerusalem is, of course, an Israeli one. But it's very different. And the type of Ladino that you're going to see in these two series is widely ranging, which is why I did an exclusive interview with the language coaches for both series. And that helped me a lot when it comes to analyzing Ladino on these two series. In the chapter, people will find the entire transcription of every Ladino word in the first season of both series. Every word in Ladino is transcribed and translated into English and analyzed from the perspective of revivalistics and critical sociolinguistics. So first, Kulüp. The language coach was Izet Bana, who is an artist from Turkey, L1 speaker of Ladino, and recognized as a prestigious speaker by the local and international community. And it's great. The Ladino that people will see in Kulüp is high quality. It has been edited and post-edited carefully. Everybody who said any word in Ladino had been trained to say it or already knew how to say it because it's their first language. So the community is heavily involved. It's very much community-based. Already in the first chapter, you can see Karen Charjon speaking in Ladino, for instance, right? The editor of El Amanecer. And Izet Banas himself participates in an episode. I don't know if you remember. It's about Purim, and he's there explaining the significance of Purim. All the people had to be coached, even though they were Sepharad. They were not necessarily fluent in Ladino. And also, we have to take into account that it was during the pandemic that the whole series was shot. So
Really?
that created, yes, and also for the first season of The Beauty Queen of Jerusalem. So this was handled differently because the way the pandemic hit in Israel was different from Turkey, but it affected the way it was done. Mostly Ladino is represented as a vernacular language, but there's a good balance between vernacular and post-vernacular instances, meaning there are fully fledged conversations in Ladino, but also just songs or single proverbs or words for food, for instance, that are interspersed rather than within a fully fledged dialogue in that language. So it's a very good balance. People will learn the most representative items of the Ladino speaking culture and also have the opportunity to hear fully fledged conversations by fluent speakers.
I mean, the Club is a fantastic series.
Yes.
But I noticed that the subtitles are incorrect. It will say they're speaking Yiddish when they're not. And another strange thing that I encountered when I started watching it, and my Netflix has never done this on anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I got through the first 3 episodes, and I was saying, why? It was in English, and I was like, what is going on? And it turned out it switched it to an English dub, but then it had people. I don't know what was going on, but it wasn't very user friendly.
Yes, you're absolutely right. I said that this is a critical sociolinguistics book, and so therefore we don't pedestalize any particular initiative, and we criticize every single one. And one of the things that I mentioned in the book, in that chapter, is that subtitling and dubbing is wrong in both Kulüp and The Beauty Queen of Jerusalem, whereas it is not in the case of Unorthodox or Stitzel. Meaning that the problem is not minoritized languages on Netflix. The problem is minoritized languages to the extent that Ladino is on Netflix. So speaking to both language coaches, they both told me that they didn't have any say in the subtitle or the dubbing. It was not sent to them for verification purposes or anything. So it was done externally. And what happens is that, as I also point out in the chapter, online platforms reproduce offline prejudices and biases, and this is what
Mhm.
Sophia Noble calls the algorithms of oppression, or harmful algorithms, as they have already been called. And that's why sometimes you hear Ladino and it says Spanish, or even French, or Hebrew. That's the algorithms of oppression. It's the same algorithm that corrects you when you type a word in Ladino on Microsoft Word, underlines it, that says, did you mean the Spanish form of that word? It's the same problem, yeah.